Welcome friends, it's Gail here. Before making gingerbread ornaments, we asked ourselves this question. How do we make gingerbread salt dough ornaments flat with minimal air bubbles so that they look beautiful on the tree and they're easy to paint? In part 2, which will come out next week, we will discover which 3D paint works best on salt dough ornaments. Click on subscribe and notifications if you'd like to see how these ornaments look great with our snow-covered ombre pinecone ornaments and our ice ornaments that will be ready in the next couple of weeks. The first step is to gather the ingredients and make the dough. I'm starting off with a half cup of salt, 1 cup of flour. You want to use all-purpose flour, not the self-rising flour because it will bubble. 3/4 cup of cinnamon, that will give us our color, and 3/4 cup of water. I'm going to mix all of these together first, and if it's too dry, I can add a teaspoon of water at a time. So I place 1 ounce of water in here, and I'll just pour a little in if I need it. We're going to start off by pouring our flour into a medium-sized bowl. Add my salt and my cinnamon right here. One of the places where I found cinnamon to be the cheapest was Target, and I bought a 4-ounce bottle for about $2.19. If you use a lot of cinnamon, I will leave a link in our description where you can buy 2 pounds of cinnamon for under $20 on Amazon. My water is lukewarm. I'm going to pour this in here. I want to mix it well to help avoid air pockets when baking, and I'm looking to get rid of most of that white flour color before I start to bind it together. At this point, I might put on some gloves so I don't get all that cinnamon stuck in my fingernails. Now I'll knead it together with my hands. I recommend kneading this together for a good 3 to 5 minutes. Here's a grocery list of supplies to summarize this section. Roll and even out the dough 1/4 inch to 3/8 inch thick. I'm rolling out my dough on a flat, clean surface. And right here in my hand, I have wooden slats. Slats are thin pieces of wood that are placed on each side of the dough to use as height guides when rolling out the dough. We want the dough to be 1/4 inch thick, so the slats are 1/4 inch thick. Mine are actually 3/8 inch thick, and I'll have to roll it out just a tad bit more. My slats are made out of popsicle sticks that are hot glued together. The reason why we want our ornaments to be 1/4 inch thick is they'll break if they're thinner than 1/4 inch, and they will get puffy if they're over 1/4 inch thick. I'm going to place them out to the sides of my dough. If you don't have a rolling pin, you can use a cylinder like I have in the past, whether it be a glass, a vase, or PVC piping from a hardware store. I'm going to take part of my dough and start to roll it out. When rolling out the clay, I want to make sure that my rolling pin is always on top of the slats so that I can maintain the 1/4 inch thickness. I'm rolling out the dough. I will flip it over to make sure that it does not stick to the surface. So I'm going to go back and forth and make sure that it's the same level as my slats. Look at that consistency, isn't that awesome? Use cookie cutters to cut out the ornaments, poke holes for hangers, and arrange them on a cookie sheet. Okay, now I have my ornaments, or I have my cookie cutters. I'm going to start to cut them out with the sharp side down. There's my thickness and my first piece. To make the holes, one of my favorite tools of all is to use a straw. It just creates a really nice clean edge. So we'll go in here. Be careful not to get too close to the edge. About 1/4 inch away. Isn't this fun? Then you want to cover cookie sheets with a piece of parchment paper and start to lay out your ornaments, keeping at least 1/4 inch between. This recipe makes approximately 10 to 15 ornaments. You can see that the salt is starting to come to the surface here, and it's getting lighter and it's drying more uneven, but don't worry about that. I'll show you how to coat it after we take them out of the oven. Bake the dough ornaments in the oven and prepare them for painting, which will be shown in part 2. When we place them in the oven, we're placing them in at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I will be watching the clay dough for 2 hours to make adjustments along the way, and this includes changing the temperature within those 2 hours. I'm placing both cookie sheets in the middle of the oven so they're not too close to the top and the bottom where they'll burn. Also, it would be better for me to have them on one shelf. By the way, this is a non-edible recipe. It's 20 minutes in, and I have switched my cookie sheets from one shelf to the other, and I flip my ornaments over so that they can dry more flat. Okay, I have a confession to make. These ornaments smell so good. I keep drinking coffee with pumpkin spice and hazelnut so I can enjoy the full experience. After baking them for 1 hour, I have moved all of my ornaments to the same cookie sheet because the ones on the bottom were starting to bubble up a little bit like you see right here, and the ones on top were not doing that. So I decided to place them all together. It's okay if they touch now. I had 2 that were bubbling up a little bit, so I poked them with a toothpick, pressed out most of the air, and turned them upside down. While I'm 1 hour in, I'm turning down my heat to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm adjusting my time to 1 hour and 30 minutes. Here are the ornaments. They are super hard, and they turned out really well. To summarize how we bake these ornaments, we bake them at 200 degrees Fahrenheit for 1 hour. After 20 minutes, I switched the cookie sheets around and I flipped all the ornaments upside down and continued to bake them for the next 40 minutes. 40 minutes later, I checked for any bubbles. I poked holes in them, and then I moved all the cookies to one sheet so that they dried on one shelf only. I reduced the heat to 180 degrees, then I reset the time for 1 hour and 30 minutes. So it took 2 hours and 30 minutes to complete the baking process. In the description, you can click on more, scroll down, and find the recipe and instructions. There's one more step to complete before painting them next week. The last step is taking a little bit of vegetable oil or olive oil to rub on top of the salted surface, or you can use a brush and rub it on. This step turns the light areas to dark brown and creates an even tone before applying the paint and sealer. Stay tuned till next week. Next week we'll go into part 2 where we will demonstrate and paint with 3 different types of paints, and we'll also paint with 3 different types of sealers. We have a clear winner in each section. We have a favorite paint and we have a favorite sealer. Please give us a thumbs up if you got something out of this video. Here are more DIY ornament videos that might interest you.